God let you love the wrong person first, the pain that had to happen. There are moments when love feels like a divine miracle at first, when someone enters your life, and everything inside you whispers, "This must be the one." You pray about it, you thank God for them, and for a while the world seems lighter. You give your heart fully, believing this love was heaven sent. But then, something breaks, promises fade. You're left staring at the pieces of your own heart, asking God why He let it happen. There's a kind of pain that goes deeper than words, the pain of loving someone who wasn't meant to stay. It's the ache that reaches your spirit, not just your emotions. You replay conversations, you search for meaning, and you question where you went wrong. Yet through it all, God remains silent, or so it seems. But silence doesn't mean absence. Sometimes His silence is the lesson. Because here's the truth. God often allows us to love the wrong person first, not to destroy us, but to develop us. He allows the heartbreak, the confusion, the loneliness, because there are things that can only be learned through loss. The wrong person becomes the classroom where your soul learns endurance, forgiveness, discernment, and the difference between human attachment and divine love. It's not punishment, it's preparation. It's God reshaping your heart so it can hold the kind of love that reflects His own. When you look back one day, you'll realize that the relationship that almost broke you was the one that brought you closest to God. You'll see that what felt like rejection was actually redirection, that every tear was watering the soil for something holy to grow. So before you curse the pain or wish you could erase the past, pause. The wrong person may have left, but the right lessons remain. And those lessons are the foundation upon which God will build the kind of love you were truly created for. Number 1. God needed to awaken your heart to what love truly is. Sometimes the first person you love is the one who opens your heart, not to happiness, but to heartbreak. And as painful as that sounds, it's in that very breaking where the awakening begins. God allows certain people to enter your life, not because they're meant to stay forever, but because they're meant to wake something inside of you. Before you met them, you might have thought love was just butterflies and connection. But through them, you learned that real love is something much deeper. It's patient, selfless, enduring, and often sacrificial. God's Word describes love, not as a fleeting feeling, but as a divine commitment. In 1 Corinthians 13, it says, "Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud." But you don't fully understand that verse until your heart has walked through the fire of disappointment. You don't truly learn patience until you love someone who tests your limits. You don't truly learn kindness until you've been hurt and still choose compassion. The wrong person, without even realizing it, teaches you what real love should look like by showing you what it's not. Through the pain of unmet expectations, through the exhaustion of one-sided effort, you begin to recognize what God's love feels like in contrast. Unconditional, steady, pure, and healing. That's the awakening God was after all along. He needed you to feel love deeply, to understand its power, but also its weight. He needed you to see that love, when done outside of His guidance, can drain you, but when done under His will, it fills you. You learn that it's not enough to find someone who simply says, "I love you." You need someone whose love leads you closer to Christ. So yes, maybe that first love broke you. Maybe it left scars. But those scars are sacred reminders that your heart is capable of feeling something real. God had to show you the counterfeit before He could prepare you for the genuine. He had to let you love imperfectly, so that when real love comes, love rooted in His purpose, you'll recognize it instantly. You'll no longer chase intensity. You'll seek peace. You'll no longer crave attention. You'll crave understanding. You'll no longer settle for chemistry. You'll wait for covenant. Because now your heart knows that, and it all began with the pain that taught you what love, at its core, truly is. Something holy, something divine, something that always points back to God. Number 2. God needed to reveal what's broken within you. The hardest truth to accept is that sometimes the wrong relationship isn't about the other person at all. It's about the mirror they hold up to your soul. God often allows the wrong person to come into your life so that the reflection you've been avoiding becomes impossible to ignore. They stir things in you that were hidden: insecurities, fears, pride, control, codependency, and in doing so, they reveal the wounds that God has been waiting to heal. In Psalm 139, David prays, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts." It's a dangerous prayer, because when God truly searches your heart, He doesn't just show you what's right, He shows you what's broken. And one of the ways He does this is through relationships. When you love the wrong person, maybe you noticed how easily you gave up your boundaries to feel wanted, or how deeply you feared being alone. Maybe you realized that your worth had been tied to someone's attention rather than God's affirmation. It hurts to see those parts of yourself, but that's exactly why God let it happen, so that the pain could push you toward healing. The wrong person has a strange way of showing you your unhealed places. They might not have treated you right, but through that you learned to value yourself. You learned that love shouldn't cost your peace. You learned that you were worthy of more than apologies that never came. God used that heartbreak like a spiritual surgery, cutting deep enough to expose what needed repair. And once you saw it, you could no longer ignore it. The relationship became a revelation. God was saying, "Look, my child, this is what I want to heal in you. Not to condemn you, but to set you free." Because true love, the kind God designed, can't thrive in a heart that's still bleeding from old wounds. Healing had to come first. So when you think of the one who hurt you, don't just see the pain they caused, see the truth they exposed. Maybe they awakened the insecurity you've carried since childhood. Maybe they forced you to face the fear of rejection or abandonment. Whatever it was, God used it to call you closer. Because before He can unite you with the right person, He has to make sure you're whole enough to recognize them. Wholeness attracts wholeness. And sometimes, God lets a broken love story be the very thing that leads you to spiritual restoration. The heartbreak wasn't meant to crush you. It was meant to cleanse you. It stripped away your illusions and drew you into the only love that never fails: God's. Number 3. God needed you to learn the difference between temporary emotion and eternal purpose. There's a kind of love that ignites like fire, fast, bright, and consuming. It feels destined, fated, almost sacred. But as quickly as it begins, it flickers out, leaving only ashes behind. And in that quiet aftermath, you realize something profound. Not everything that feels right is rooted in God's purpose. The heart is powerful but easily deceived. Jeremiah 17:9 reminds us, "The heart is deceitful above all things, and beyond cure. Who can understand it?" When we rely only on our emotions to guide us, we often mistake intensity for destiny. The wrong person can make you feel alive in a way that blinds you to truth. The connection may be real, but real doesn't always mean right. God allows these emotional storms to show you that passion without purpose fades, but love built on divine alignment endures. You may have thought it was love, because it filled the empty spaces inside you. But often what fills us isn't what heals us. God wanted to teach you the difference between the kind of love that excites your emotions and the kind that expands your spirit. Because when the emotions fade, purpose remains. That's how you recognize what's truly from Him. In every broken attachment, God was showing you the cost of following your feelings instead of His will. He was whispering, "I know this feels right now, but I see where it leads." And though it hurt when He let it fall apart, His no was an act of mercy. He didn't want you to build your future on something that wasn't designed to last. True love, the kind God ordains, isn't rooted in butterflies or adrenaline. It's anchored in peace, trust, and mutual pursuit of His presence. It doesn't drain you or confuse you. It steadies you. It doesn't fade with time. It grows stronger through it. The wrong person often teaches you this truth. By contrast, you learn that real love doesn't demand you abandon yourself. It calls you to become your best self. When you finally meet the one God has chosen for you, the difference will be undeniable. It won't just feel right, it will be right. Because the peace of God will confirm what the passion of man could never sustain. The wrong relationship was the training ground for discernment, a necessary refining of your heart to distinguish between what is emotional and what is eternal. So if your heart once mistook excitement for love, don't be ashamed. You're wiser now. God didn't let you lose, He let you learn. And now, you won't just fall in love, you'll recognize it when it's from Him. Number 4. God needed you to learn obedience through pain. Few lessons cut as deeply as this one. Sometimes God asks you to let go of someone you love, not because they're bad, but because they're not meant for your destiny. And the obedience required to release what your heart still desires is one of the truest tests of faith. In Genesis 22, Abraham was asked to sacrifice Isaac, the very son he had waited decades for, the promise he thought defined his purpose. It was unthinkable, painful, even unfair. Yet Abraham obeyed, and in that moment, God revealed something extraordinary. Obedience unlocks divine provision. "Now I know that you fear God," the Lord said. That same spiritual principle applies to relationships. Sometimes God allows heartbreak to test whether you love Him enough to trust His plan over your own desires. When God says no, it's not cruelty, it's clarity. He sees what your heart can't. Maybe that relationship would have taken you off course, dimmed your faith, or tied you to someone unwilling to grow spiritually. You couldn't see it then, but His no was protecting your purpose. Painful obedience purifies your faith. It teaches you that peace is better than passion, that purpose is greater than preference. You begin to realize that love, when it's not aligned with God's will, becomes a distraction instead of a blessing. You stop begging for what's not meant to be and start praying for the strength to accept what's best for you. It's easy to say, "Lord, I trust you," until He asks you to walk away from the very thing you prayed for. But that's when trust becomes real. Every tear you cried over that relationship was not wasted. It was watering the soil of surrender. God was teaching you that faith isn't proven in the waiting. It's proven in the letting go. And when you finally release what He asked you to, you'll feel something you didn't expect: freedom. The same God who took something from your hands will fill them again in His time with something better, something lasting, something divine. Obedience hurts, but it heals. It transforms your love story from self-driven to God-led. And one day, when you stand beside the person God wrote into your destiny, you'll understand why you had to walk away from what you once thought was forever. Because what God gives after obedience is never a loss. It's always redemption. Number 5. God needed you to learn forgiveness and grace. It's one thing to love someone. It's another to forgive them after they've broken your heart. Forgiveness feels impossible when all you want is justice, or at least an explanation. But sometimes the only closure you'll ever get is the peace God gives you when you finally let go. The truth is, forgiveness isn't saying what they did was okay. It's saying you're no longer carrying it. God allows certain heartbreaks not just to test your endurance, but to reveal the depth of your grace. Because love that can't forgive is love that still needs to grow. Through the pain of betrayal or disappointment, God teaches you how to forgive like He does, fully, freely, and without conditions. It's the kind of forgiveness that doesn't wait for an apology. It's the kind that says, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." When Jesus spoke those words on the cross, He wasn't just forgiving an individual. He was releasing all of humanity from the debt of sin. And in your heartbreak, God calls you to reflect that same heart. To say, "Lord, I release them, not because they deserve it, but because I want to be free." Because holding on to bitterness doesn't punish the other person. It poisons your spirit. It keeps you tied to a moment God is trying to move you beyond. Forgiveness doesn't mean you let them back into your life. It means you hand them over to God and allow Him to deal with them His way. You stop rehearsing the pain and start reclaiming your peace. You begin to understand that forgiving isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's choosing freedom over frustration, grace over grudges. And when you extend forgiveness, something miraculous happens. Healing begins. Your heart softens. Your faith deepens. You start to see that the person who hurt you was also broken, also lost, also learning. You stop viewing them as your enemy and start seeing them as another soul in need of grace. In forgiving them, you also learn to forgive yourself for ignoring red flags, for staying too long, for believing too much. You realize that God never condemned you for loving. He only wanted you to learn from it. Every wrong person, every tear, every sleepless night was shaping you into someone more compassionate, more discerning, more Christ-like. So when you look back, don't see yourself as a victim of love gone wrong. See yourself as a vessel God purified through pain. You forgave not to erase the past, but to make room for the future. Because when the right person comes, your heart will be lighter, cleaner, free of the weight of what once was. That's what forgiveness does. It prepares you for the kind of love that doesn't just feel right, but glorifies God. Number 6. God needed you to understand waiting and trust. One of the hardest seasons in life is the waiting season. That stretch of silence after heartbreak, where nothing makes sense, where you wonder if you'll ever love again. But it's in that quiet, in that stillness, where God does His greatest work. He takes what was shattered and begins to rebuild. He takes what was restless and teaches it to rest. Waiting isn't punishment. It's preparation. God allows the wrong relationship to end, not to leave you empty, but to make room for something better. And in the meantime, He's asking you to trust Him not with part of your heart, but with all of it. Isaiah 40:31 says, "But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles." Waiting is not wasted when it's rooted in faith. When you wait on God, you begin to see love differently. You no longer chase what looks good. You pray for what's godly. You stop asking for someone who fits your list and start asking for someone who fits your purpose. The wrong person might have made you impatient, desperate to fill the void. But God allows that impatience to expose how much you still need to trust His timing. Look at Ruth. She didn't chase after Boaz. She focused on her field, worked diligently, and let God align their paths in His perfect timing. The same God who orchestrated that divine meeting is the same God writing your story. He hasn't forgotten you. He's not ignoring your prayers. He's preparing both you and the one meant for you in ways you can't yet see. The waiting season refines you. It teaches you patience, discernment, and faith. It strips away the noise so you can hear God's voice clearly. It shifts your prayers from "Lord, give me someone" to "Lord, make me ready." Because sometimes the only reason the right person hasn't arrived yet is because you're still becoming the person who can keep them. So if you're waiting right now, don't rush. Don't settle. Don't let loneliness drive you back to what God already freed you from. Trust that His delays are never denials. Trust that He's working behind the scenes in ways you couldn't orchestrate even if you tried. When the right person finally comes, it will be effortless. You won't have to chase, convince, or compromise. It will be peaceful because it will be purposeful. And you'll realize that the wait was never wasted. It was sacred. God wasn't withholding love. He was teaching you to recognize the kind that lasts forever. Number 7. God needed to prepare you for the right person, His way, not yours. At some point, after all the heartbreak, tears, and long nights of asking why, you'll begin to see that everything had a purpose. Every wrong person, every unanswered prayer, every goodbye, it was all preparation. Because the truth is, God's way of preparing you for the right person often involves breaking every version of love you built without Him. You see, we all have an idea of what love should look like. We picture the type of person we think we need. We build our own timelines, our own expectations, and then we hand them to God as if He's meant to follow our plan. But God, in His mercy, He loves you too much to let you settle for less than His divine design. So He dismantles your version of love to make room for His. Before He brings you the one meant for you, He refines you. He strengthens your spirit, teaches you patience, deepens your discernment, and restores your faith in His timing. Because the person God prepares for you isn't just someone you'll love, it's someone you'll build the kingdom with. And that kind of relationship requires maturity, humility, and spiritual alignment. Think of Joseph. Before he ever stood in the palace, he was betrayed, abandoned, and forgotten. But every setback was a setup. Every disappointment was a divine detour toward destiny. In the same way, every relationship that fell apart was moving you closer to the person who fits not just your heart, but your calling. The wrong person taught you what you don't want, but more importantly, who you are. You learned that peace is worth more than passion. You learned that love isn't about possession, it's about partnership. You learned that God's timing is safer than your own. And once your heart understands those truths, you're ready, not just to meet someone, but to recognize them when they come. The right person won't come with confusion or chaos. They won't make you question your worth or your faith. They'll feel like answered prayer, not because they're perfect, but because they point you back to God. You'll see His fingerprints all over the way they love you, the way they pray with you, and the way they protect your peace. When that day comes, you'll look back and finally understand why God said no to the others. Because if He had given you what you wanted then, you would have missed what you needed now. His delays were never to deny you love, but to align you with the kind that lasts. The waiting, the heartbreak, the healing, it all had to happen first. You weren't being punished, you were being prepared. And when God finally says, "Now," you'll know it was worth every tear. Because this time, it won't just be love. It will be purpose, peace, and promise, all wrapped in one. Conclusion: The wrong love was the right lesson. When you look back over your life, you'll realize that the wrong people didn't ruin you. They revealed you. Every heartbreak was a chapter in your redemption story. Every closed door was God's way of leading you to something greater. You weren't being broken apart. You were being broken open. God let you love the wrong person first, so you could love the right one better. He allowed the pain so you could recognize peace. He allowed the betrayal so you could recognize loyalty. He allowed the silence so you could hear his voice above all others. What once felt like failure was actually foundation, a spiritual rebuilding of your heart so that when the right love comes, it finds you whole, not half-healed. You'll love differently now. You'll love with wisdom, with grace, with eyes that see not just the person, but the purpose. So thank God for the ones who left. Thank Him for the ones who hurt you, the ones who confused you, the ones who forced you to grow. Without them, you wouldn't have found the strength, the clarity, or the faith you have today. The wrong love may have ended in heartbreak, but it ended exactly where it needed to, at the feet of the one who knows how to heal. Because when God writes your love story, it won't begin with pain. It will begin with peace. And in that peace, you'll finally understand it had to happen this way.